Hello, this is Winston Cunningham, and it is February the 17th, 2025. And what is on my mind today is the cycle of cell life and death over a 7-year period I'd like to talk about. Because there's the reason why is that, there are things that I want to change in my physical body. I'm in pretty good health, but there are exceptions to that I want to deal with. And what I'm aware of, chiefly from my studies at the School of Metaphysics and my experience since then, that it's the kind of thinking that we do that affects the health of our body, right down to each cell. And if you don't, if you do not yet have a copy of Permanent Healing, let me encourage you to get a copy, because what I'm talking about today is very relevant to the different types of thinking that causes that, the types of thinking that affect different parts of the body, different cells. So if we, to maintain our health, or maintain the same thing we have experienced before, including ill health, that's easy to do. Just keep thinking the same way without any changes. But what I'm wanting to do is improve particular parts of my body, so that points to specific types of thinking. So I've got some work to do, and but I'm thankful that I found a School of Metaphysics and I became aware of how my choices affect everything in my life. And the way it affects the physical body is what I'm focusing on today. As Henry David Thoreau was fond of saying, that if you're acquainted with the principle, what do you care about a myriad of instances and applications? And especially since I've studied at the School of Metaphysics, I tend to hang on to principles, because whatever I'm wanting to work out in my thinking, or whatever I'm wanting to understand a little better, it will involve some basic principles. And the principles of the universe is what the laws of the universe are based upon. And universal truths, which comes to us through our experiences, the truths support the universal laws. So this is the good stuff, so to speak, is in the principles. Each cell in the body is replaced within a 7-year period. The heart cells may take a certain length of time, and the eyes another length of time, but the body as a whole, each cell will be replaced in a 7-year period. Now, the principle is this. The principle to be aware of is this, that since your brain tells your body what to do, and the brain gets its direction from your manner of thinking, then see if it don't make good sense that if you improve your thinking, you're going to improve the cells in your body, and that improves your health. And if you do the same type of thinking over and over again, you're going to have the same problems. So our physical body and the desire for better health can be incentive to learn from our experiences. Because when we improve our thinking, everything follows, including the health. Everything follows. And so there's some things that I've recognizing in myself where I've been repeat offenses, if you will. So I may be comfortable in repeating those things because this is part of the comfort zone, so to speak. So it's uncomfortable to make changes, and yes, I don't like. I try to avoid discomfort. So I have to really push myself to make changes. And the most important part of making changes, or at least the beginning, is to become aware of those changes that I want to make or that I need to make. And this is where the book Permanent Healing can help anybody, any place, anytime, because it helps you get familiar with specific attitudes. And once you get the book and start reading through it, well, read all the way through. Once you get the book, read all the way through so you know what's there. But you'll talk to people every day and they'll be talking about their illnesses, which people tend to do. And then you can go home and look it up and you will begin to understand, because you can see, you may know this person, you can see how their attitude, how they've got a particular thing wrong that you can see in the Green Book or the Permanent Healing Book. And then you know them well enough to that pattern of thinking, so it begins to make sense. So everyone needs a copy of this book. I'd like to see one in every household. It would be beneficial, because rather than thinking that things just happen to you, it's better to know how they happen and why. And it's not someone up there saying you get this and you don't. Because we all have free will. And our life each life is shaped according to that person's choices. But every 7 years, each cell in the body is changed. So the benefit in looking at this and beginning to understand this and to work with it gives you a way to, rather than to have the normal life expectancy of reaching a certain age and just beginning to fall apart. There's remedy to this. And this is what I'm talking about today, is a big part of this, is to, if you remember the prayer of serenity, this is the part that you can change if you have the courage. Or not so much courage as effort. You know, when Jesus said, if you want to see something, then look. The door will be open. So this book, Permanent Healing, could be a doorway to a lot of new understandings which could change your life, to make your whatever remains of your life a lot more pleasant, or to more to your liking and more to your you'll begin to see by studying the book Permanent Healing or working with it that you can have better health, and it comes from better thinking. Each 7 years. When I first heard that, one of the doctors at the school, I heard him say that. But it just, and it's come to make a lot of sense to me. And of course, I like listening to documentaries, whether it's on new medical developments or just about anything that's of interest, that's presented with an intention to share useful information rather than just spreading prejudice and stuff. I don't care for that. Although I got some myself, I guess, because and I talk about these things, and that's what these talks are a lot about. Prejudice is, now that's probably a big word, and that's just coming from left field here. Prejudice, as I hear it talked about, is a little bit different than what I'm seeing right now. To discriminate means to cut. If you look up the root word, it means to cut, which means the process that it's taught at the School of Metaphysics is to separate things that seem the same into their own distinctive parts, so that you can use them independently and reintegrate things on a higher level. And that's what I'm talking about. If you're putting in effort to go to a higher level of thinking within yourself, it's going to have a positive effect on your health. And by looking closer at the book Permanent Healing, it will give you a way to become familiar with how that begins to take place. That's what the book is about, and comes from the research into mind done by the School of Metaphysics, led by Dr. Daniel Condren. And there's a lot of people involved in that, but he wrote the book from the research and also his experience. And I appreciate that. And I use it, I look at it on a regular basis, especially because I do a healing practice every day. And if somebody's got some ailment that they're particularly bothered with at the moment, then I can refer to the Green Book and I can look at the attitude that causes it. And then when I've got my attention on them during the healing process, then I can encourage the use of a better way of thinking. I say encourage because as I do my healing practice, it's not a forcing thing. It's a practice of compassion, empathy, not sympathy. Empathy. Sympathy is the worst thing you can do for somebody, but empathy is the caring part. But when you say, poor baby, if you're going to cry, if you're going to talk, do so independently, distinctly, but don't mix the two together. Oh, God. That's the most irritating thing for me. Is if somebody's going to cry or they're going to talk, make up your mind. Do one at a time. If you're going to cry, go cry. That's a good thing. But I don't need to see that. Or I understand you want me to see it because that's a desire for sympathy. But if a person begins to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy, then they're going to lean toward the empathy side. And they'll talk instead of cry and talk at the same time. That's for TV. That's just spilling out your emotions. And a person needs to do that, but they need to do it looking in the mirror. Not wanting sympathy from everyone else. That's the slow way to productivity. I feel like I've just started this subject and there's so much more to say, but then this may be enough to just, if this talk causes somebody to go get a copy of Permanent Healing and begin to use it, then it will have been worthwhile. And I'm thinking about this today because of some changes I want to make in myself. And I know how I've created it because it's habitual thinking and I have some stubbornness. And maybe you do too. I don't know. But it's a thing that I recognize in myself that I want to improve. And so I'm looking at that. And a part of me talking about that is helping me looking at it. I'm Winston Cunningham. Thank you. Have a good day.